Never tell people what you do to earn your money. Keep it private and keep your power. Most people don't realize this, but the moment you tell someone how you make money, their whole view of you changes. Some start comparing themselves, some get jealous, others begin expecting things from you, and suddenly your peace is gone. Ask yourself, why should anyone know your income story? Does it really help you? Or does it create gossip, pressure, and fake relationships? In daily life, you've probably seen it: friends drifting apart because of money talk, families fighting because of comparisons, co-workers competing instead of supporting. That's the cost of exposure. This video is about protecting yourself from all of that. It's about building confidence that doesn't depend on showing off. It's about keeping your journey private so you can grow in peace, focus on your goals, and live life on your terms, without envy, without judgment, and without pressure. Chapter 1. Understand envy and protect yourself by staying financially silent. You know, one of the most powerful lessons a person can learn in life is the importance of silence, especially when it comes to money. People often think that success must be announced, that income should be displayed, and that every achievement deserves an audience, but the truth is very different. The truth is that when you talk too openly about how you earn your money, you invite something into your life that can damage your growth, slow down your progress, and steal your peace. That something is envy. Envy is not just a small reaction. It is a powerful emotion buried deep in human psychology. People may smile at your words, they may nod and congratulate you, but inside, not everyone is happy for you. Some will feel left behind, some will feel smaller, some will even begin to resent you for no reason other than the fact that you are doing what they could not or would not do. That's why being financially silent is not about being secretive, it is about being wise. Every time you tell someone exactly how you make your money, you risk triggering that natural comparison in their mind. They start measuring themselves against you. They start asking why you have something they do not. They begin to question their choices, and sometimes that questioning turns into bitterness. That bitterness may come out as sarcasm, criticism, or even distance. Have you ever noticed that when people know too much about your financial journey, they slowly change their behavior toward you? Suddenly your good news is not so welcome. Suddenly your presence makes them uncomfortable. That is envy at work, and it is real. Silence protects you. It creates a space where your growth is. When you keep your financial path private, you prevent others from building unfair judgments about you. You remove their chance to misinterpret your motives. You avoid unnecessary conflict, and most importantly, you give yourself the freedom to focus on what truly matters: your craft, your discipline, and your improvement, without the burden of having to explain yourself. See, people think they want to know how you do it, but what they really want is either a shortcut or a reason to criticize. If they find out you are working day and night, they may call you obsessed. If they find out you are investing in ways they do not understand, they may call you foolish. If they see that your income grows beyond their imagination, they may call you lucky. No matter what you say, no matter how honest you are, people will filter it through their own insecurities. That is why silence is so powerful. It gives no room for distortion. When you stay financially silent, you also strengthen your inner world. You learn to stop depending on external validation. Many people brag about their money or share every detail of their journey because deep down they want someone else to recognize their worth. They want applause, but applause is temporary. Approval is temporary. If your self-esteem is built on what others think of your earnings, you will always be fragile. By keeping your money story private, you train yourself to build confidence from within. You measure your success by your own standards, not by the reactions of others. Think about it. The world is full of people who lost relationships because of envy. Friends who grew apart because one became more successful. Families who turned bitter because one sibling advanced further. Neighbors who stopped talking because one household had more. At the root of it all is comparison, and comparison is fueled when people know too much about your financial life. If you want to preserve your peace, if you want to protect your relationships, and if you want to keep your journey free from unnecessary friction, then financial silence is your best defense. Now, silence does not mean you stop helping others. It does not mean you become distant or cold. It simply means you choose carefully what you reveal. You can still teach principles. You can still inspire with your discipline. You can still encourage people to grow. But you don't need to open your financial diary to the world. The principle is simple. Show your habits, not your numbers. Show your discipline, not your bank account. Share your wisdom, not your income streams. That way, you remain inspiring without triggering envy. Human psychology works in layers. On the surface, people admire success. They cheer for winners. They celebrate victories. They look up to achievers. But underneath, there is always a part of the human mind that compares. If your success highlights someone else's lack of progress, admiration can quickly turn into resentment. This is not because people are evil. It is because they are human. They struggle with their own insecurities, their own disappointments, and their own unrealized potential. When you stay financially silent, you spare them from that struggle. And in return, you spare yourself from becoming a target of their silent resentment. There is also a deeper power in silence. When people do not know your every move, they cannot interfere. They cannot sabotage your plans. They cannot discourage you from taking a risk. They cannot talk you out of something that feels right to you. Silence gives you control. It keeps your dreams intact until they are strong enough to stand on their own. Too often, people share their financial goals with the wrong audience, and before long, the audience plants seeds of doubt. And doubt is like poison. It kills ambition slowly. Financial silence shields you from those destructive influences. Think about the times in your life when you told someone about an idea, a project, or a financial plan, and instead of support, you received criticism. Maybe they said it would never work. Maybe they told you it was too risky. Maybe they laughed. And maybe, just maybe, their words made you hesitate. How many opportunities have been lost because someone else's doubt became louder than your own belief? Silence prevents that loss. By keeping your financial journey private, you protect your ambition from being weakened by voices that do not understand it. There is also a freedom in mystery. When people cannot place you in a box, when they cannot label you by your income or your job title, they are forced to see you as more than money. They must notice your character, your values, your discipline, your kindness. That is who you really are. Money is a tool, but character is the foundation. If all people see in you is the way you earn money, they reduce your identity to numbers. But when you remain financially silent, they have no choice but to engage with the real you. Psychology teaches us that people are always observing. Even when they say nothing, they are collecting information. If you reveal too much about your money, people start building stories in their minds about you. Stories you never intended, stories that may not even be true. And once those stories take root, they are hard to erase. Silence prevents the wrong stories from forming. Silence gives you the power to define yourself on your own terms, not on the assumptions of others. Financial silence is also a form of respect for yourself and for others. For yourself, because you protect your hard work from being reduced to gossip. For others, because you spare them the temptation of comparison. You give them the freedom to be around you without feeling small. That is a gift, and it keeps relationships healthy. Now, some will argue that transparency builds trust, and yes, in some areas of life that is true. But when it comes to money, transparency often builds tension. People handle financial information differently. Some may admire it, others may resent it, and some may even try to take advantage of it. You must know the difference between openness that builds connection and openness that invites envy. Silence, in this case, is not dishonesty. It is wisdom. So, how do you practice financial silence in daily life? It starts with awareness. Be aware of how much you reveal in casual conversations. Be aware of the details you share on social platforms. Be aware of the people you choose to confide in. Not everyone deserves access to your financial journey. Choose wisely, trust selectively, and always ask yourself, does this person need to know this? If the answer is no, then keep it private. Another way is to redirect conversation. When people ask about your income or your methods, you can shift the focus. Talk about principles instead of numbers. Share lessons instead of details. For example, instead of saying how much you make, share how important consistency is in your work. Instead of describing your exact strategy, talk about the discipline it takes to stick to a routine. You still add value to the conversation, but you protect your privacy at the same time. Over time, financial silence becomes a habit. It becomes second nature. To move quietly, to grow privately, to let your results speak for you. And the beautiful part is, when people eventually see your success, they cannot argue with it. They cannot deny it. They cannot take credit for it, because you built it in silence, without depending on their validation. That is true freedom. So remember this. Envy is real. Judgment is real. Comparison is real. These are not signs of weakness in others. They are simply parts of human nature. If you want to grow without unnecessary resistance, if you want to build without distractions, if you want to keep your peace intact, then protect yourself with silence. Protect your money story. Protect your journey. Protect your dreams. Silence is not about hiding. It is about choosing wisely. It is about living with intention. It is about giving yourself the best chance to succeed, without the weight of envy pressing against you. You do not need to announce your path. You do not need to explain your hustle. You do not need to justify your income. All you need to do is work, grow, improve, and let your results do the talking. That is how you understand envy. And that is how you protect yourself, by staying financially silent. Your silence is your shield, and your growth is your proof. And when you live this way, you build not only wealth but also strength, peace and freedom. And that, my friend, is worth far more than applause.
Chapter 2. Recognize human judgment and keep your earnings private always. One of the greatest challenges you will face in your journey to financial independence is not the work itself, not the discipline it requires, but how people see you once they know what you earn. Human judgment is everywhere. People judge when you make too little, they judge when you make more than them, and they judge when you make choices they do not understand. That judgment is constant. It is built into the way people think. You cannot control it, but you can control how much information you give them to feed that judgment. The moment you tell someone how much you make, you open the door to a chain of thoughts in their mind that you can never control again. Some will measure you by your income. Some will decide if you deserve respect or not based on that number. Some will quietly compare themselves to you and either feel superior or inferior. Others may start to adjust how they treat you, not because of who you are, but because of what you earn. This is why keeping your earnings private is not just a strategy, it is a necessity if you want peace, freedom, and control over your own life. Human beings are wired to rank themselves against one another. From school grades to job titles to salaries, society constantly encourages comparison. If you share your financial details, you give people a ruler to measure you by. And once they have that ruler, they will not stop measuring. They will watch what you buy, where you live, what you drive, and even how you spend your free time. Suddenly, every action of yours is filtered through their perception of your earnings. If they think you make a lot, they may accuse you of being wasteful or arrogant. If they think you make a lot, they may accuse you of being wasteful or arrogant. If they think you made too little, they may look down on you or dismiss your abilities. In both cases, your worth is no longer about your character, but about your income. Keeping your earnings private protects you from being reduced to a number in someone else's mind. It allows people to see you for who you are, not what you make. When you don't disclose your income, your relationships are based on personality, trust, and values, rather than financial comparisons. The truth is, once people know your financial standing, they often stop seeing the real you. They see a dollar sign, a paycheck, a figure that either makes them admire you or resent you, and neither of those reactions is truly about you. It's about their judgment. Think about how conversations change once money is brought into them. If someone knows you earn more than they do, even if they never admit it, they might feel a subtle bitterness. They might question whether you deserve it. They might assume you had unfair advantages. On the other hand, if someone thinks you earn less, they may talk to you with condescension or doubt your ability to succeed. In both cases, judgment shapes their words, their tone, and their attitude toward you. By keeping your earnings private, you spare yourself from these invisible but very real shifts in relationships. There is another reason judgment is so dangerous. People rarely keep it to themselves. Once someone knows your financial situation, they share their thoughts with others. They tell friends, family, or colleagues what they think of your earnings. Suddenly, strangers know something about your life that they were never meant to know, and with each retelling, the story changes. People exaggerate, twist, or misinterpret details. What began as a simple disclosure becomes a rumor, and once that rumor spreads, it is impossible to contain. By staying private, you eliminate the risk of losing control over your story. You might wonder, but what if I trust the person I tell? Even with trust, you must remember that judgment is not always intentional. Even the kindest friend or closest relative can begin to see you differently once they know your earnings. Their subconscious cannot help it. They may treat you with more caution, more expectation, or more comparison than before. They may not mean harm, but their perspective changes. Silence keeps the relationship natural. Silence keeps it free of financial weight. It is also important to understand that judgment is not always negative. Sometimes it is disguised as praise. People may glorify your income, exaggerate your success, or put you on a pedestal. But even that kind of judgment is dangerous. Why? Because it creates pressure. When people expect you to always perform at a certain level, you may feel forced to meet those expectations, even when life requires flexibility. If you ever earn less, if your business takes a temporary dip, if you change careers, those same people who once glorified your income will now question you. Their admiration can turn into disappointment over. Keeping your earnings private saves you from this cycle of exaggerated praise and sudden doubt. There is a sense of strength in privacy. When no one knows your exact financial standing, they cannot box you in. They cannot set ceilings for you or imagine limits for your future. They cannot place labels on your journey. You remain free to grow without interference, free to adapt without scrutiny, and free to live on your own terms. Your life belongs to you, not to their judgment. In society today, people often overshare. They talk about salaries at work, they post income screenshots online, they announce every financial milestone. While this may bring temporary validation, it also brings lifelong judgment. Once people know, they don't forget. Years later, they may still reference what you said, still compare you to others, still use that information to evaluate your worth. It is much harder to undo disclosure than it is to maintain privacy from the beginning. A quiet approach to money creates a calm life. When people cannot place you on their financial scale, they have no reason to treat you differently. They cannot envy what they do not know. They cannot belittle what they cannot measure. They cannot create stories without information. And in that silence, you preserve your freedom to define success, your own way. Keeping earnings private is also about protecting your focus. Judgment is distracting. Once you become aware that people are forming opinions about you, it is easy to get caught up in trying to manage those opinions. You may feel tempted to prove something, to show that you deserve what you earn, or to downplay your achievements to make others comfortable. All of this takes energy away from the real work, improving yourself, building your future, and staying disciplined. Privacy cuts off that distraction at its root. When nobody knows, you don't have to manage their perceptions. You are free to give your energy to progress instead of explanation. There is also a practical side. Sharing financial details can create unnecessary risks. Some people may see your income as an opportunity to take advantage. They may ask for loans, favors, or handouts. Others may adjust their expectations of you, assuming you can always afford more, always contribute more, always cover the bill. Over time, this becomes draining. You are no longer seen as a person, but as a source of resources. Privacy protects you from these unfair dynamics. When people cannot judge your earnings, they cannot assign financial responsibilities to you that are not yours to carry. Every human being carries their own struggles, insecurities, and ambitions. When you reveal your earnings, you unintentionally shine a light on their struggles. You remind them of what they have not achieved. You stir up questions in their minds about their own path. That is why even innocent disclosure often leads to judgment. People project their frustrations onto you. By staying private, you allow them to focus on their own lives without dragging yours into the equation. Human psychology is simple in this regard. People will always interpret your money through the lens of their own life. If they are doing well, they may cheer you on. If they are struggling, they may resent you. If they are insecure, they may gossip. If they are ambitious, they may compare. None of these responses are truly about you, but they become attached to you the moment you share details. Privacy removes that attachment. It leaves people with no fuel for their judgment. When you practice keeping your earnings private, you also send a message to yourself. You remind yourself that your worth is not tied to money. You tell yourself that you do not need approval from others to validate your progress. You strengthen your independence from social comparison. This mindset is powerful because it gives you resilience. Whether you earn more tomorrow or less tomorrow, your identity does not shift with the numbers. You remain grounded in who you are, not in how others see you. The decision to remain private with your earnings is not a decision against openness. It is a decision for peace. It is a decision to keep relationships genuine, to protect your ambitions from interference, and to free yourself from the constant weight of judgment. It is not about mistrust. It is about understanding human nature. Judgment is inevitable, but how much power it has over your life depends on how much information you hand out. Choose silence, not because you are hiding, but because you are protecting. Protecting your progress. Protecting your progress. Protecting your progress. Protecting your identity. The less people know about your earnings, the freer you are to grow without limits, to move without labels, and to live without judgment pressing against you. That is how you take control of your life and keep it yours.
Chapter 3. Protect your identity by separating money from personal worth. There comes a point in every person's life when they have to decide what truly defines them. Too many people let money take that role. They begin to see themselves not as human beings with values and character, but as a paycheck, a bank balance, or a title. And when that happens, their sense of identity becomes fragile. When they earn more, they feel inflated. When they earn less, they feel worthless. That is a dangerous way to live. Real power begins the day you separate money from personal worth. Money is important, yes. It gives you options, it pays for your needs, it can improve the quality of your life. But money is not who you are. It is something you use, not something you become. If you tie your identity to money, you are building your sense of self on shifting sand. Because money goes up and down, businesses succeed and fail, markets rise and fall, jobs come and go. If your worth depends on money, then every change in your financial situation will shake your confidence. You will live in constant fear of losing not just money, but yourself. Protecting your identity means reminding yourself every day that your value as a person is rooted in deeper things: your character, your discipline, your kindness, your ability to grow, your contribution to others. These are things no one can take away. Even if your bank account changes tomorrow, your principles and your inner strength can remain steady. That is what creates lasting confidence. Confidence built on numbers is fragile. Confidence built on values is unbreakable. Think of how many people collapse emotionally when their income drops. It is not because they no longer have enough to survive, it is because their sense of identity was built on how much they earned. They feel stripped of importance, stripped of dignity, stripped of meaning. But if they had learned to separate money from self-worth, they could lose income without losing themselves. They could face temporary setbacks with courage, because they know they are more than their bank statement. It is easy to fall into the trap of comparison. Society constantly tells you that the richer you are, the more important you are. Social media floods your mind with images of people showing cars, houses, clothes, and vacations, as if that is proof of superiority. If you are not careful, you start to measure your worth against those images. You start to think you are less, if you have less. But here is the truth. Money shows what you can buy, not who you are. A car does not equal character. A house does not equal wisdom. Clothes do not equal integrity. If you forget that, you will spend your life chasing symbols instead of building substance. Protecting your identity means being deeply aware of this trap and refusing to fall into it. When you see others flaunting money, you remind yourself, that is not identity, that is purchasing power. When you feel tempted to show off what you own, you stop and ask, am I proving who I am, or am I proving what I have? This awareness keeps you grounded. It helps you walk confidently in your own shoes without needing validation from possession. One of the most damaging effects of tying identity to money is how it poisons relationships. If you believe your worth comes from what you earn, you will either look down on those who earn less, or feel inferior to those who earn more. Neither brings peace. Both create tension. You cannot build genuine friendships or meaningful partnerships when money is the scale of worth. By separating your identity from money, you free yourself to connect with people as human beings, not as financial comparison. You see beyond income and into character, and that gives you richer connections than money ever could. This separation is also crucial for your mental health. People who base their worth on money often live under crushing pressure. They constantly chase more because they think more money means more identity. They cannot rest, they cannot enjoy, they cannot slow down, because slowing down feels like losing themselves. This creates anxiety, burnout, and emptiness. But when you realize money is not your identity, you can pursue it with balance. You can enjoy the process of growth without turning it into a desperate race. You can appreciate what you have without feeling like it defines your entire being. Protecting your identity also allows you to take risks without fear. If money defines you, failure feels like death. You will avoid risks because you are terrified of losing what gives you worth. But if money does not define you, you are free to experiment, to try new things, to face setbacks with resilience. You know, a failed investment or a lost job does not reduce your value as a person. It is simply an event, a lesson,
part of the journey. That freedom to fail is what makes growth possible. There is something powerful about walking into a room and knowing that your value is untouchable. Not because of your salary, not because of your possessions, but because of your inner strength. People sense that kind of stability. They respect it. They are drawn to it. Real influence comes not from money, but from identity that is grounded in principles and character. When you no longer depend on money to define you, you can stand tall in any environment, whether you are surrounded by billionaires or beginners. You remain yourself, and that steadiness is magnetic. Human psychology often confuses appearance with substance. Many people live double lives. On the outside, they show wealth. On the inside, they are insecure and empty. They chase money to hide from their lack of self-worth. They buy things to cover their fear of not being enough. But you cannot protect your identity that way. You protect your identity by facing the truth. Money cannot heal insecurity. It cannot fix emptiness. It cannot replace self-respect. Only building your character, your values, and your discipline can do that. You will also notice that when you detach your identity from money, you make smarter financial choices. Why? Because you no longer use money to prove something. You no longer spend to impress. You no longer chase every opportunity just for the sake of showing results. Instead, you use money as a tool. You invest it wisely, you manage it carefully, and you let it serve you rather than control you. Detachment creates clarity, and clarity leads to better decisions. If you want to test whether your identity is tied to money, watch your emotions. How do you feel when you lose a little? Do you feel like you have lost yourself? How do you feel when you gain more? Do you suddenly feel superior? These emotional swings reveal the truth. When you are free, money will affect your circumstances, but not your identity. You will celebrate gains, but you will not be defined by them. You will feel the sting of loss, but you will not collapse from it. This emotional balance is the mark of someone who truly protects their identity. There is a quiet strength in knowing you could lose everything today and still remain yourself. That no market crash, no job loss, no failed deal can erase who you are. That strength comes only when you separate money from personal worth. Imagine living that way. Imagine the confidence of waking up every day and knowing you are valuable before you earn a single dollar. Imagine pursuing success not because you need it to prove yourself, but because you want to grow, contribute, and live fully. That is freedom. The world will always try to label you by money, advertisements, social standards, and even some people close to you will push the idea that your value is measured in wealth. Protecting your identity means rejecting that lie every single day. It means reminding yourself that you are not your paycheck, you are not your possessions, you are not your net worth. You are far greater than that. Money is something you use, something you build, something you manage, but it is never something that defines you. When you understand this separation, you begin to live differently. You stop chasing appearances. You stop fearing judgment. You stop overvaluing what you cannot keep. Instead, you start valuing what lasts. Character, relationships, health, wisdom, growth. These are treasures no amount of money can buy and no loss of money can take away. This is where true self-worth is found. So protect your identity. Guard it fiercely. Refuse to let numbers on a screen decide how you feel about yourself. Refuse to let society's scale of wealth control your confidence. Build your self-worth on values so strong that no financial storm can shake them. Pursue money. Yes. Build wealth. Yes. But do it with the understanding that these things are tools, not title. They are resources, not reflections of who you are. When you make this shift, you will notice a new kind of peace in your life. A peace that does not depend on circumstances. A peace that is steady whether you are at the top of your game or rebuilding after a setback. That peace comes only when you know that who you are is not for sale, not for comparison, and not for judgment. It is yours alone, and nothing, not even money, can touch it.
Chapter 4. Avoid hidden competition by never exposing your income path. One of the most overlooked realities in life is the presence of silent competition. People rarely say it out loud, but they compare themselves with you more than you realize. The moment they learn details about how you make your money, some begin to measure themselves against you. At first it may look harmless, but underneath, comparison slowly grows into hidden rivalry. That rivalry can poison relationships, create unnecessary tension, and even bring resistance to your progress. This is why you must protect your path and never expose every detail of how you earn your living. When people know the exact steps you take to build your income, they may copy you, but often they do not copy with respect. They copy with a quiet desire to outdo you. Instead of cheering for your growth, they set silent goals to surpass you. Suddenly, a friend who once seemed supportive starts acting differently. A colleague who once collaborated begins competing. What changed? The information you revealed gave them a starting line. By showing your path, you gave them a target. Human nature leans toward comparison. Many people cannot help but see someone else's success as a challenge. If you earn in a way they can understand, they start telling themselves, "If he can do it, I can do it better." This mindset creates rivalry where there should have been respect, and once competition enters the picture, relationships shift. Instead of mutual growth, there is quiet tension. Instead of trust, there is calculation. Instead of celebration, there is judgment. All of this happens because you gave away too much information. Avoiding hidden competition means protecting the details of your income journey. It is not about being secretive for the sake of mystery. It is about keeping your peace intact. Imagine training for years, sacrificing sleep, working in silence, and finally building something of value only to realize someone close to you has turned your path into their playbook. Now, instead of support, you feel their presence as a challenge. Instead of unity, you feel distance. That can be avoided when you understand the psychology of people and choose privacy. Competition can be healthy when it pushes you to improve yourself, but hidden competition rarely brings positive outcomes. It often breeds resentment, gossip, and jealousy. When someone feels they are racing against you, they may wish for your failure just to feel ahead. Even worse, some may try to sabotage your progress to keep themselves on top. They may spread doubt about your abilities, they may question your methods, or they may downplay your achievements in conversations. This is not open rivalry, it is a quiet undercurrent, a subtle pull against your momentum, and it all begins with giving them too much insight into your financial road. You also have to remember that not everyone has the same heart as you. Some people are motivated by encouragement, while others are driven by rivalry. When you openly share your earnings path, you cannot control how they will react. One person may take inspiration, but another may feel threatened. One may celebrate your courage, but another may quietly plot to prove you wrong. The safest choice is to avoid giving anyone the material to start such games in the first place. Privacy builds strength, because it keeps you out of unnecessary battles. Every ounce of energy you spend defending your path or dealing with rivalry is energy taken away from your growth. When no one knows the exact details of your income, you walk freely. You move without interference. You build without pressure. You live without the shadow of comparison. Your progress becomes your own, not a contest someone else decided to create. People will always talk that cannot be stopped, but the less they know, the less they have to twist. If you say too much, your words may be reshaped into rumors. If you reveal too many details, they may turn into benchmarks others use to measure themselves. By keeping your path private, you control the narrative. You give people less material to create stories around. And with fewer stories, there is less competition, less envy, and less tension surrounding your life. Another hidden danger of exposing your income path is how it changes expectation. The moment someone understands how you earn, they begin to predict your next moves.
They expect you to continue at the same pace, or they assume you will always outgrow them. Some may even pressure you to share opportunities with them, as if your hard work is theirs to benefit from. When you withhold those details, you free yourself from those burdens. Nobody can expect what they do not know. Hidden competition can also affect your emotional health. You may start to notice subtle changes in how people treat you. Small comments, sideways glances, passive remarks. Even if they never say it outright, you can feel the weight of comparison. That pressure can make you second-guess yourself. It can make you wonder if you should slow down or stay quiet about your victory. By never exposing your income path, you prevent that weight from ever reaching your shoulders. You protect not only your relationships, but also your mental clarity. There is also a long-term perspective to consider. When people think they know your financial strategy, they lock you into that story. Years later, even after you have evolved, they will still define you by what you once revealed. They will compare where you are today to the information you gave them long ago. That outdated story becomes a benchmark you never asked for. If you never reveal it, there is nothing to trap you. You remain free to grow, adapt and change without the noise of old judgments. Sometimes competition appears in the most unexpected places. Family, friends, co-workers. You might assume they will always be supportive, but human psychology does not work that way. Even the closest person to you can feel a spark of rivalry if they think you are financially ahead of them. This does not make them bad people, it makes them human. But because you understand this, you can prevent unnecessary strain by keeping your income path private. It allows relationships to remain pure, based on care and trust rather than rivalry and comparison. Keeping your income journey to yourself also teaches you humility. It reminds you that your value is not in proving how you earn, but in who you are becoming. When you no longer feel the need to display your methods, you free yourself from chasing approval. Your validation comes from your own growth, not from competing in silent battles you never asked for. Some might argue that sharing your path could inspire others. That may be true, but inspiration does not require full exposure. You can encourage people by sharing principles, discipline, patience, focus, resilience, without handing over the blueprint. Inspiration should guide others to build their own path, not to copy yours. Protecting your income details does not make you selfish, it makes you wise. It ensures your journey remains yours, while still allowing you to encourage others in ways that truly strengthen them. There is also a practical truth. When too many people know what you do and how you earn, they can crowd your space. If your path becomes too visible, others may flood into it. Markets shift, industries become saturated, and opportunities shrink. Privacy not only protects you from hidden competition on a personal level, it also protects the opportunities you worked hard to find. By moving quietly, you maintain your advantage and preserve the fruits of your effort. It is not about fear, it is about focus. Every hidden competitor you avoid gives you more space to concentrate on your real mission. Life is not meant to be lived as a race against everyone around you. It is meant to be lived as a steady climb on your own mountain. Exposing your income path distracts you from that climb, because you end up dealing with unnecessary challenges. Privacy allows you to keep your eyes on your own peak, your own goals, your own growth. Protecting yourself from hidden competition requires discipline. It means resisting the urge to brag, resisting the pressure to explain, and resisting the temptation to prove yourself. It means choosing silence over oversharing, even when curiosity or pride pushes you to speak. That discipline keeps your path clear, your relationships healthy, and your mind focused. In the end, avoiding hidden competition by keeping your income path private is about building a life of peace. You do not need silent rivals slowing you down. You do not need envy creeping into your relationships. You do not need unnecessary battles stealing your joy. All you need is the space to grow freely, the strength to focus on your journey, and the wisdom to understand human nature. People cannot compete with what they do not know. They cannot measure what you keep private. They cannot challenge what you never reveal. And in that silence lies freedom, clarity, and lasting success.
Chapter 5. Strengthen self-respect by not chasing approval through money. One of the greatest traps in life is believing that your value depends on how others see you. People often work harder to impress strangers than they do to build respect within themselves. They spend money not because they need to, but because they want to be noticed, accepted, or admired. But here is the truth. Every time you chase approval with money, you weaken your self-respect. The only way to grow strong from the inside is to stop tying your worth to how people react and start grounding it in who you are. Think about how common this behavior has become. Someone gets a promotion, and instead of enjoying the growth privately, they feel compelled to prove it with purchases. A new car, expensive clothes, a bigger house, all not because they truly wanted these things, but because they wanted to show others that they are doing well. The applause may come for a short while, but it fades. And when it fades, they are left with debt, emptiness, and the same insecurities they had before. Self-respect cannot be bought with money. It is earned through discipline, integrity, and consistency. Chasing approval is a form of dependence. You place your confidence in the hands of others, waiting for them to validate you. When they approve, you feel good. When they ignore you, you feel small. That cycle makes you a prisoner of public opinion. And here is the problem. People's opinions are unstable. They change with moods, with envy, with comparison. If your self-worth is built on that unstable ground, you will always feel insecure. Real freedom begins the moment you decide you do not need applause to feel valuable. Money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy dignity. Dignity comes from knowing that you live by your values, that you do not compromise who you are for attention, and that you do not spend just to be seen. When you resist the urge to chase approval, you stand taller. You look in the mirror and see someone who makes choices for themselves, not for the crowd. That is the foundation of self-respect. There is also a hidden danger in using money to gain approval. It never ends. The more you spend to impress, the more you will have to keep spending to maintain the image. People quickly get used to what you show them. If you buy one nice car, soon they expect the next one to be even better. If you take one trip, the next one must look more glamorous. Approval is a hunger that grows, and once you start feeding it with money, it will never be satisfied. Instead of living for yourself, you become a performer on a stage that demands more every day. Strengthening self-respect means breaking free from that cycle. It means saying to yourself, I will no longer live for the applause of others. I will no longer make decisions to prove something. I will build my life on principles that matter to me. That shift changes everything. You stop wasting energy trying to control how people see you, and you start putting that energy into building a life that you respect, whether anyone notices or not. Self-respect also grows when you learn to say no. People who chase approval with money often struggle with boundaries. They spend on things they cannot afford. They give more than they should. They agree to financial requests out of fear of judgment. Every time they do this, they shrink inside. They know they are not acting out of strength, but out of weakness. To rebuild respect, you must learn to stand firm. You must learn to protect your resources, your time, and your focus. Saying no is not selfish. It is self-preservation, and it is one of the clearest signs that you value yourself enough to stop buying acceptance. When you stop chasing approval through money, you also change the quality of your relationships. People begin to connect with you for who you are, not what you display. If someone only admires you for what you can buy, that is not admiration. It is dependence. Real friendships are built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. By living without the need to show off, you filter out the shallow connections and attract people who value your character. In the end, that brings more peace and fulfillment than any applause could give. Look at the people who constantly seek validation through money. They post every purchase. They announce every luxury.
They exaggerate their lifestyle. On the surface, it looks like confidence, but underneath, it is often insecurity shouting for attention. True confidence is quiet. It does not need to prove. It does not need to display. It simply exists, grounded in self-respect. If you want that strength, you must train yourself to resist the temptation of showing everything. Keep your victories close, share your growth wisely, and let your peace be louder than your possessions. There is another truth to understand. People admire confidence far more than they admire possession. A person who walks with calm assurance, who does not feel the need to prove anything, commands more respect than the one who tries to flash wealth. Approval gained through money is shallow, but respect gained through authenticity is deep. When you no longer chase approval, people notice. They may not clap, but they will feel the power of your independence. You must also remember that approval is temporary, but self-respect is lasting. The applause of others fades quickly, but the voice inside you never stops speaking. Every time you compromise your values to impress others, that voice gets weaker. Every time you choose yourself over their opinions, that voice gets stronger. Over time, the strength of that inner voice becomes the foundation of your confidence. It is better to disappoint the crowd than to disappoint yourself. Strengthening self-respect requires practice. It begins with awareness. Notice when you feel tempted to buy something or share something just to be noticed. Ask yourself, am I doing this for me or for them? If the answer is for them, step back. Choose differently. Build habits that remind you your value is not tied to applause. The more often you do this, the easier it becomes. There is a peace that comes with not chasing approval. You begin to enjoy life on your own terms. You make purchases because they serve you, not because they impress others. You work hard because it fulfills you, not because you want validation. You save and invest because it secures your future, not because it creates an image. This way of living is lighter, freer, and more sustainable. It creates a life where your respect for yourself is stronger than the opinions of others. Approval is fragile. It can vanish in a moment. People can change their minds about you tomorrow, but self-respect stays with you as long as you protect it. That is why you must never give it away in exchange for applause. Applause may sound sweet for a moment, but self-respect is what helps you sleep at night. It is what gives you strength in hard times. It is what carries you through when no one is watching. Money will always play a role in life, but how you use it determines whether you weaken or strengthen yourself. If you use it as a tool for approval, you will always feel empty. If you use it as a tool for growth and freedom, you will feel powerful. The difference is not in the money, but in your mindset, and that mindset is built every time you choose respect over applause. So the challenge is simple. Stop trying to prove yourself with money. Stop trying to buy admiration. Stop seeking validation from people who will forget you tomorrow. Start building a life that makes you proud, even if no one notices. Start making choices that honor your values. Start respecting yourself so deeply that you no longer care about approval, because in the end, approval fades, applause fades, opinions fade, but the way you see yourself, the way you respect yourself, lasts forever. And when that respect is strong, no loss, no judgment, and no rejection can shake you. That is true freedom, that is true strength, and that is what makes you untouchable in a world that constantly tries to measure you by what you spend. Chapter 6. Reduce social pressure by keeping financial details to yourself. There is a quiet weight that people carry every day without even realizing it. It is the weight of social pressure. Much of this pressure is connected to money, the way you earn, the amount you save, the lifestyle you live. Once these details are known, people begin to expect things from you. They may not say it outright, but their reactions, their looks, their comments start to shape how you feel about your financial choices. That is why one of the most powerful decisions you can make is to keep financial details to yourself. By doing so, you free yourself from expectations you never asked for and protect your peace from unnecessary pressure. When people know how much you make, they begin to form silent assumptions. They decide what you should drive, where you should live, how you should spend, and even what kind of generosity you should show. Suddenly, your choices are not your own anymore. You start to feel watched. You feel judged for what you buy, and even for what you don't buy. This invisible pressure eats away at your freedom because every decision becomes a performance for the audience around you. Keeping your financial details private removes that stage. It allows you to live without carrying the burden of everyone's expectation. Social pressure has a unique power. It convinces people to live for appearances instead of reality. How many people have bought houses too big for them, cars beyond their means, or clothes that do not reflect their values, all because others knew too much about their money. They felt cornered by assumptions, so they acted to meet those assumptions, and in the process, they traded peace of mind for public approval. Privacy is your shield against that trap. When nobody knows the numbers, nobody can pressure you to fit into a role you never agreed to play. There is also another kind of pressure to explain yourself. If people know your income, they may question your decisions. They might ask why you didn't invest in something, why you didn't give more, or why you still live modestly. Their questions may seem harmless, but over time they build stress. You start to feel defensive. You start to wonder if you need to justify your path. This constant explaining drains your energy and distracts you from your real goal. By keeping your financial details private, you avoid putting yourself in a position where you need to defend your choices. Relationships also change under the weight of social pressure. When others know about your financial situation, they may place unspoken demands on you. Friends might expect you to always cover the bill. Family members might assume you can bail them out whenever they need help. Colleagues might think you no longer struggle and therefore should shoulder more responsibility. These expectations can quietly erode relationships, turning them into imbalances where you feel used instead of valued. Privacy prevents these dynamics from forming in the first place. If they don't know, they can't assume, and without assumptions, your relationships stay cleaner, healthier, and more genuine. Keeping financial details to yourself also protects you from comparisons. People naturally compare lifestyles. If they know what you make, they will measure it against how you live. If they think you have more than them, they might resent you for not living extravagantly. If they think you have less, they might underestimate your abilities. In both cases, you become trapped in their mental scale, and that scale creates pressure, whether you like it or not. Privacy removes the numbers from the equation. People are left to judge you by your character and your presence, not by their perception of your income. There is a subtle psychological freedom that comes when you no longer feel the need to update people about your money. You no longer worry about what they think of your choices. You no longer stress over whether they think you're successful enough. You stop playing a role in their narrative, and you start living fully in your own. This freedom is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, and it is unlocked through privacy. Consider how social media amplifies social pressure. People share their earnings, investments, purchases, and milestones publicly, and suddenly they are locked into a performance. Every new post must outshine the last. Every milestone must be bigger. What began as pride quickly turns into a burden. They no longer control the pace of their life because the audience they created now expects constant updates. This is the prison of exposure. By keeping your financial life private, you refuse to step into that prison. You keep your pace steady, your choices authentic, and your peace intact. Social pressure also influences how you spend time. When others know about your financial standing, they might push you into circles or events that do not align with your values. They may assume you belong in certain groups or should participate in certain activities simply because of what they think you can afford. Without privacy, you may feel cornered into living someone else's idea of success. But when you keep quiet, you control the environments you enter. You go where you choose, not where others think you should be. The truth is, most of the stress people feel around money does not come from money itself. It comes from other people's expectations about money. Think about it, if you earned well and nobody knew, you would live with freedom, peace and choice. But the moment people discover, they project their ideas onto you. They create stories about what you should be doing. That projection is what creates stress, not the money itself. The simplest way to avoid it is to close the door on disclosure. Another benefit of financial privacy is that it keeps your goals pure. When you keep your details to yourself, you pursue goals that matter to you, not goals that impress others. If you announce too much, you may feel compelled to chase milestones that please your audience. But when you work in silence, you choose freely. Your progress is measured by your values, not by their applause. This creates deeper satisfaction because you are living authentically, not performing. Privacy also protects your long-term focus. Social pressure tends to push people into short-term decisions. They want to show results now. They want to prove success quickly. They want to meet expectations immediately. But long-term growth often requires patience, modesty and delayed gratification. If you allow social pressure to dictate your path, you will abandon patience for appearances. But when you keep your financial life private, you buy yourself the freedom to move at your own pace. You can take the long road without interruption. Many people do not realize how exhausting it is to live under the constant eyes of others. Every purchase feels like a statement. Every decision feels like it is under review. That silent audience can weigh so heavily that you stop making choices for yourself. Keeping your financial details to yourself removes that invisible audience. You reclaim your right to live without judgment, without assumptions, and without pressure to perform. There is nothing wrong with success. There is nothing wrong with wealth. But both lose their joy when they are constantly subject to the opinions of others. Protecting the details of your financial life is not about hiding. It is about preserving the joy of your own growth. It is about allowing yourself to enjoy what you have built without the noise of comparison and pressure. In the end, the decision to reduce social pressure by keeping your financial details private is about peace of mind. It is about choosing authenticity over performance, balance over stress, and freedom over expectation. You do not need to explain yourself to anyone. You do not need to justify your path. You do not need to carry the weight of their opinion. All you need is to stay committed to your journey. Make choices that honor your values and protect your privacy so that pressure never dictates your life. When you live this way, you walk lighter, you move freer, you no longer feel like your life is a stage for others to watch. You no longer feel like your choices must please the crowd. You live for yourself, and that is where true fulfillment begins. Social pressure only has power when you open the door to it. Close that door, keep your financial details to yourself, and you will find the strength, peace, and clarity to live on your own terms.
Chapter 7. Guard your relationships by avoiding money comparisons and talk. One of the most fragile areas of human connection is money. People rarely admit it, but money shapes how they feel about themselves and others. When money becomes a subject of comparison or frequent conversation, it can silently damage relationships. Friends who once shared joy begin to measure each other's achievements. Families who once stood together start drifting apart under the weight of financial talk. Colleagues who once supported each other suddenly see one another as rivals. This is why guarding your relationships means avoiding money comparisons and resisting the urge to constantly bring financial topics into personal conversations. Every person carries their own story with money. Some grew up with very little and feel sensitive about the subject. Others measure their worth by their income and struggle when they hear about someone else doing better. Even if people don't say it, money often brings a mix of pride, shame, envy, and insecurity. The moment you compare your situation to theirs or discuss your earnings too openly, you stir emotions they may not be ready to face. That stirring can turn into distance, resentment, or silent judgment. Protecting your relationships means recognizing this psychological reality and choosing silence where money could create tension. Think of friendships that felt pure until money entered the picture. As soon as someone reveals how much they make, the friendship shifts. The one with more may feel guilty or pressured to cover expenses. The one with less may feel inadequate or overlooked. Conversations become strained, outings become awkward, and an invisible gap forms between them. That gap rarely closes. By avoiding money talk, you keep the friendship rooted in trust, laughter, and shared values instead of financial comparisons that divide. The same applies to family. Money has been the reason behind countless family conflicts. Siblings stop speaking because of comparisons in income. Parents unknowingly favor one child who earns more. Relatives gossip about who is successful and who is not. These conversations rarely bring unity. They bring bitterness. Guarding relationships with family means refusing to feed these comparisons. You don't need to announce your progress, and you don't need to measure yourself against theirs. Keeping money out of the discussion allows family bonds to be based on love and respect, rather than numbers and pride. In the workplace, money comparisons can be even more dangerous. When colleagues share details of salaries or bonuses, it often breeds hidden competition. Someone feels underpaid, another feels overvalued, and soon cooperation turns into rivalry. Teams weaken because trust is replaced by jealousy. If you want strong professional relationships, avoid engaging in salary debates or financial boasting. Focus on skills, growth, and contribution instead of turning income into the centerpiece of conversation. You build stronger networks when people see you as a collaborator, not as a competitor in a money race. Money talk also has a subtle way of creating distance, even among people who love each other. Imagine a simple dinner with friends. If the conversation shifts toward who spent what on vacations or who earned more this year, the tone changes. Some feel left out, others feel pressured to match the lifestyle, and what should have been a warm evening turns into silent comparison. Avoiding this kind of talk keeps the focus on experiences, memories, and connection rather than financial measurement. Guarding your relationships is about being intentional with your words. Not every detail of your financial journey needs to be shared. Not every success needs to be announced. Not every comparison needs to be voiced. Sometimes keeping quiet is not secrecy, it is respect. It is respect for your relationships and for the emotional triggers money can bring to the surface. By staying mindful of this, you protect the people around you from unnecessary feelings of inadequacy, and you protect yourself from their envy or judgment. Another important reason to avoid money comparisons is that they are almost always inaccurate. People rarely know the full story behind someone's financial life. You might think someone has more, but they may be drowning in debt. You might think someone has less, but they may be wealthy in assets you cannot see. Comparing in these incomplete ways creates false narratives and unneeded stress. The only comparison that matters is who you were yesterday versus who you are today. Every time you step into money comparisons with others, you step away from your own growth. By staying focused on your personal journey, you not only strengthen yourself, but also preserve the harmony in your relationships. There is also a psychological burden that comes when money dominates conversations. The more people talk about it, the more they begin to measure everything by it. Soon, achievements that have nothing to do with money are overlooked. Acts of kindness, personal growth, creativity, health, these become secondary. Relationships then lose their depth, reduced to a scoreboard of who is ahead and who is behind. Guarding your relationships means keeping conversations rich with meaning, centered on values, dreams, and shared experiences, rather than bank accounts. Money talk can also be manipulative. Some people use it to show superiority, others to gain sympathy, and some to push hidden agendas. When you engage in it, you open the door to being compared, judged, or even used. Protecting your relationships requires drawing a clear line. You don't allow money to be the measure of closeness. You don't allow it to set the terms of respect. You keep it where it belongs, private,
practical and personal. When you avoid money comparisons, you also free yourself from unnecessary pressure. The truth is, comparing yourself to others financially often leads to discontent. Even if you are doing well, there will always be someone doing better. If you allow that thought into your mind, it steals your peace. And when you voice that comparison, it infects your relationships with tension. By refusing to play the game of financial measurement, you choose peace over pride. You create space in your relationships for encouragement instead of rivalry. The strength of any relationship lies in trust, respect, and understanding. None of these require money as a topic. In fact, they grow stronger without it. Think about the most genuine people you know. They don't need to tell you how much they make, and they don't need to hear your numbers either. Their connection with you is rooted in character, not cash. That is the model to follow. When you live this way, people remember you not for your financial details, but for how you made them feel, how you supported them, and how you respected them. Money can complicate even the simplest of bonds, if allowed to take center stage. But when you consciously keep it in the background, relationships remain pure, friends remain friends, family remains united, colleagues remain allies. You no longer feel the weight of hidden competition or judgment. You live lighter, freer, and more authentically. Guarding your relationships is not about avoiding honesty. It is about protecting harmony. If financial matters must be discussed, keep them practical and necessary, not competitive or prideful. Share wisdom without sharing numbers. Share lessons without comparing lifestyle. Focus on principles that uplift, rather than details that divide. This approach allows you to still bring value without feeding comparison. The beauty of keeping money out of conversations is that it makes room for deeper topics. You can talk about growth, purpose, challenges, and victories that have nothing to do with income. These are the conversations that strengthen bonds and create lasting memories. These are the connections that survive hard times and grow stronger with age. When you resist the urge to bring money into the picture, you discover a richer form of human connection. At the end of the day, money is a tool. It can never replace trust, love, or respect. But if you let it dominate your relationships, it will erode all. By avoiding money comparisons and keeping financial talk limited, you protect what matters most, the people who stand by you, not because of what you earn, but because of who you are. And that kind of bond is worth far more than any number could ever measure.
Chapter 8. Train your mind to value privacy over empty praise. There is a deep shift that happens in your life when you begin to value privacy more than you value attention. Most people live in reverse. They want to be seen, they want to be applauded, and they crave the approval of others. They post every achievement, they announce every step, and they look outward for validation. But here is the trap. Praise is temporary, and it is hollow when it comes from the outside. It can make you feel good for a short while, but it cannot give you lasting strength. If you want a mind that stays strong in every season, you must train yourself to love privacy more than you love praise. Training your mind begins with awareness. You must become aware of how much of your energy is spent seeking recognition. How often do you find yourself doing something just to be noticed? How often do you feel the urge to announce your progress? How often do you check for reactions, likes, or compliments after sharing something? Every time you do, you are placing your peace in the hands of others. That habit weakens you because your emotions begin to depend on their response. Privacy breaks that cycle. When you choose to hold your wins quietly, you tell yourself that your growth matters even if nobody knows about it. That choice builds inner strength. Empty praise may sound sweet, but it is unstable. One day people clap for you, the next day they forget you. One moment they admire your success, the next they criticize your choices. If you allow that unstable reaction to guide you, you will constantly rise and fall with their opinions. But if you learn to love privacy, you stabilize yourself. You no longer rise and fall with the noise outside because your value is rooted in what you know about yourself, not in what others say about you. Privacy is not about hiding. It is about holding power inside. It means you don't need to prove your worth through exposure. You don't need to parade your progress to feel significant. You don't need applause to validate your discipline. You know what you're building, you know how far you've come, and you know the value of your journey. That knowledge is enough. When you train your mind to think this way, you step into a form of confidence that nobody can touch. One of the dangers of chasing praise is that it changes your focus. Instead of working for excellence, you start working for approval. You choose actions that will be noticed, not actions that are meaningful. You cut corners for quicker results because you want something to show. You shift from purpose to performance, and in the process, you lose the essence of true growth. Privacy guards you from this danger. When you no longer care about showing results, you free yourself to focus on real progress. You focus on building strength instead of seeking recognition. The mind must be trained like a muscle. Every time you resist the urge to share for the sake of attention, you strengthen the muscle of privacy. Every time you hold back from announcing a milestone, you grow stronger in discipline. Every time you sit with your own achievement without needing someone else's applause, you build resilience. Over time, this training makes you unshakable because you no longer rely on the outside world to feel good about yourself. Empty praise also creates dependency. When you get used to being admired, you begin to crave it. If you don't receive it, you feel unseen, and that feeling can create frustration. Some people go to extreme lengths just to keep the attention alive. They overshare, exaggerate, and even create false images of success, all because their minds are addicted to the reaction. Privacy breaks that addiction. It reminds you that growth is valuable even in silence. It teaches you to celebrate progress within yourself without needing an audience. That is freedom. Privacy also creates clarity. When you are not distracted by showing off, you see your goals more clearly. You no longer confuse success with recognition. You no longer chase what looks impressive. You chase what actually matters to your life. You make decisions with wisdom, not with the desire to be noticed. This clarity gives you an advantage because while others are lost in the noise of approval, you are quietly building something real. Another important truth is that praise often attracts envy. The more you expose, the more you invite judgment, jealousy, and gossip. People rarely see your effort. They only see your results. And instead of understanding the sacrifices behind your growth, they may criticize or compete with you. By valuing privacy, you avoid this unnecessary negativity. You keep your peace intact because no one can envy what they cannot measure. Training your mind to value privacy also strengthens humility. When you stop announcing every step, you remind yourself that your journey is not for show. You are not building to prove anything to anyone. You are building because you want to live with discipline, freedom, and purpose. Humility keeps you grounded even when success comes. It prevents pride from blinding you and ensures that your focus remains on the work, not the applause. There is also a deeper satisfaction that comes when your achievements are known only to you. When you wake up early to work hard and nobody claps, but you know you did it, that satisfaction is pure. When you finish a project and resist the urge to boast, but you feel proud inside, that satisfaction is lust. Privacy allows you to enjoy the work itself, instead of being trapped in the chase for recognition. It teaches you to love the process, not just the response. The mind is always tempted by shortcuts. Praise feels like a shortcut to significance. It feels like proof that you matter. But true significance does not come from outside approval. It comes from the strength of your own character, the discipline of your daily habits, and the quiet confidence of knowing you are on the right path. Privacy forces you to build that significance from within. It trains you to seek meaning, not attention. You must also recognize that praise is selective. People clap for what they can see, but they rarely notice the countless sacrifices behind the scenes. They may cheer your promotion, but ignore the years of effort it took. They may admire your success, but dismiss the struggles you faced.
If you train your mind to rely on their applause, you will constantly feel unrecognized because they can never see the full picture. Privacy solves this problem by reminding you that recognition is not the reward. The reward is in knowing your own effort, your own growth, and your own journey. When you choose privacy, you protect your energy. Constantly seeking praise is exhausting. You spend mental energy crafting how you will be seen, worrying about reactions, and adjusting your actions to please others. This drains you, but when you stop seeking it, you redirect that energy into your growth. You spend more time working and less time performing. You spend more time building and less time broadcasting. That shift allows you to move faster, stronger, and with more focus. To truly train your mind, you must practice detachment. Detach from the need to be seen. Detach from the desire to be admired. Detach from the habit of seeking validation. The more you detach, the stronger you become, and the stronger you become, the freer you live. Privacy is not just about keeping secrets. It is about living above the noise. It is about choosing peace over performance and discipline over display. The challenge is not easy. The world constantly pressures you to show more, share more, and prove more. But strength lies in resisting that pressure. Every time you choose privacy, you are building mental toughness. Every time you choose silence, you are practicing mastery. And every time you hold your progress close, you are training your mind to find value in growth itself, not in the echo of applause. Empty praise fades quickly. Privacy builds a foundation that lasts. When you train your mind to value privacy, you stop depending on others to feel complete. You find fulfillment in your own journey, and you learn to respect yourself even when nobody is watching. That is a kind of power no crowd can give you, and no crowd can take away. So choose privacy over praise, not because you are hiding, but because you are strengthened. Not because you fear attention, but because you no longer need it. Build quietly, grow steadily, and let your peace come from within. Train your mind until you no longer crave empty approval. Train it until you no longer need to be noticed. Train it until you are proud of your journey in silence. That is where real freedom begins. That is where real confidence is born. And that is the life that allows you to rise above noise and live with unshakable strength.
Chapter 9. Escape manipulation by keeping people guessing about your income. There is a side of human nature that many people never stop to notice until it hurts them. It is the way others use information to control or influence your decisions. The truth is, the more people know about you, especially about your money, the more they can manipulate your choices. They know where your strengths are, where your weaknesses lie, and how to push you into giving more than you should. That is why one of the smartest moves you can make is to keep people guessing about your income. When others do not know your exact financial standing, they cannot box you in, they cannot pressure you unfairly, and they cannot use your own information as a tool against you. Manipulation thrives on certainty. If someone knows exactly what you earn, they can shape their requests around it. A family member might ask for a loan and justify it by reminding you of how much you make. A friend might expect you to always pay for outings because they believe you have enough. A colleague might try to guilt you into taking on extra responsibility because they assume you're already compensated well. The moment you disclose numbers, you give others leverage. But when they are left guessing, that leverage disappears. They may speculate, but speculation does not have the same weight as certainty. Keeping people uncertain is not dishonesty, it is protection. It is protecting your boundaries from being crossed and your goodwill from being exploited. If you have ever been in a situation where someone assumed your resources were theirs to use, you already know how exhausting that can be. People who manipulate often do not see themselves as manipulators. They convince themselves that you can afford it, that you owe it, that you should do it. But their justification comes only because they think they know your financial reality. Remove that knowledge, and you remove their tool.
There is another way manipulation works when income is exposed. People begin to shape how they treat you based on what they believe you can do for them. If they think you earn more, they may treat you as a resource rather than a person. They may flatter you, not out of genuine respect, but to stay in your good graces for potential benefits. If they think you earn less, they may dismiss your ideas, assuming you have no authority to speak about success. In both cases, their behavior is not authentic, it is calculated. Privacy forces people to relate to you for who you are, not for what they believe you can provide. Consider how many relationships have been damaged by money entanglements. When manipulation enters, trust is broken. You may feel taken advantage of, and they may feel entitled. This cycle creates bitterness on both sides. But if no one knows your income, manipulation cannot take root. There is no ground for entitlement to grow because the foundation, the knowledge of your money, is missing. What remains is a cleaner, more balanced relationship. You also have to remember that not all manipulation comes in obvious forms. Sometimes it is subtle. A small comment like "you must be doing well, can't you help out?" or "with what you make, this shouldn't be a problem for you," may sound harmless, but those words carry pressure. They are designed to make you act against your will, and once you give in, the cycle continues. The requests get bigger, the pressure grows stronger, and soon you feel cornered. By keeping your income private, you prevent even the smallest opening for that kind of influence. Privacy also helps you maintain control over your choices. When no one knows your financial standing, you are free to give when you want, spend how you want, and save at your own pace. You are not weighed down by outside expectations. Your generosity becomes genuine because it comes from your heart, not from someone else's assumptions. Manipulation often disguises itself as expectation, but when there is no information to fuel those expectations, you regain your freedom to choose. Manipulation is not limited to personal circles. Even in professional environments, income disclosure can put you at a disadvantage. If colleagues or competitors know too much, they may use it to push their own agendas. They may try to control negotiations, block opportunities, or make demands based on assumptions about what you earn. In such settings, privacy is a strategy. It keeps the balance in your favor, because nobody can manipulate what they do not know. Another danger is how manipulation can affect your emotions. When someone knows your financial situation and uses it against you, you may begin to feel guilt, shame, or pressure. These emotions can cloud your judgment. You may give more than you should, agree to things you dislike, or sacrifice your own goals to keep peace. This emotional drain keeps you stuck, and it only exists because you gave others access to details that were never theirs to hold. Privacy shields your emotions. It protects your mind from unnecessary guilt trips and keeps your decisions clear. It is also important to see how manipulation multiplies when information spreads. You may trust one person with your income details, but once that person shares, even casually, the circle of people who can use that knowledge against you expands. Suddenly, you are not just managing one person's expectations, but several. Each one has their own way of applying pressure. Before long, you are drowning in the weight of everyone's assumptions. The only way to stop this chain before it begins is to keep your income private from the start. There is also a deeper psychological advantage in keeping people uncertain. When people cannot figure you out, they respect boundaries more naturally. Ambiguity creates space. It prevents others from building stories about you and leaves them no clear angle to explore. When people are left guessing, they are forced to approach you without manipulation because they cannot anchor their tactics to specific numbers. This uncertainty works in your favor. It keeps you safe from being boxed in. You must also understand that some people manipulate without even realizing it. They don't wake up intending to pressure you, but their own insecurities and struggles drive them to expect more from you than they should. If they think you are doing better financially, they may feel entitled to your help, even if it harms you. If they think you are doing worse, they may treat you with less respect. Either way, their behavior shifts because of the details they think they know. By withholding those details, you protect the purity of your interactions. The habit of silence is one of the strongest defenses against manipulation. It teaches you discipline. It trains you to resist the urge to explain, to brag, or to prove yourself. You learn to find satisfaction in your own progress, without the need to display it. That silence keeps your life simpler, lighter, and less vulnerable to outside interference. Freedom is the ultimate reward of keeping people guessing. Freedom to say yes without guilt. Freedom to say no without pressure. Freedom to grow at your own pace without carrying others' expectations. Every time you keep your income private, you preserve that freedom. Every time you resist the urge to disclose, you strengthen your ability to live authentically, not manipulative. The world is full of people who lost control of their lives because they allowed others too much access to their money story. They became the go-to person for handouts, the reliable safety net for others' mistakes, or the constant provider in every social situation. They thought they were helping, but in reality, they were being manipulated. Their time, energy, and resources were drained. All of this could have been prevented with one principle: keep people guessing. It is not about mistrust, it is about wisdom. Wisdom tells you that human behavior changes with money. Wisdom shows you that information in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. Wisdom reminds you that silence is a form of protection. If you truly want to escape manipulation, you must create an atmosphere of uncertainty around your income. The less people know, the less power they have over you. This approach does not make you selfish, it makes you free. Free to give when your heart decides, free to grow without interference, free to maintain relationships without hidden agendas. Privacy is the line that separates genuine connection from manipulation. Cross that line, and you invite pressure. Guard it firmly, and you protect both your life and your peace. So the choice is clear. You can live under the influence of others, letting them use your financial details as leverage, or you can reclaim your control by keeping people guessing. Choose the second path. It is the path of strength, clarity, and freedom. Keep your income private, keep your boundaries strong, and you will find yourself escaping manipulation at every turn. That is how you create a life guided by your values, not by someone else's expectation.
Chapter 10. Build inner power by thriving without outside financial validation. The real measure of strength is not how much you earn, how big your house is, or how expensive your lifestyle appears to others. The real measure of strength is whether you can stand tall and thrive without needing anyone else to recognize your worth. Too many people chase external validation for their finances. They want the world to clap for their success. They want approval for their purchases, and they want respect based on their income. But this kind of validation is weak fuel. It burns out quickly and leaves you always hungry for more. If you want true inner power, you must train yourself to thrive without outside financial validation. Inner power begins with knowing your own reasons for what you do. When you build something, when you save, when you invest, when you work hard, it should be because it matters to you, not because you want others to notice. If you live for external validation, you will never stop performing. You will always feel the need to prove yourself. But when you ground your decisions in your own values and your own mission, you no longer need an audience. That independence gives you an unshakable foundation. Financial validation is dangerous because it ties your identity to applause. If people approve, you feel valuable. If they ignore you, you feel invisible. This puts your confidence at the mercy of others' moods. But thriving without it means you decide your value is not up for debate. You do not rise and fall with opinions.
You stand on steady ground because you know your worth is rooted in your discipline, your consistency, and your character, not in someone else's reaction. Building inner power also means finding joy in progress no one else sees. Most of the growth that matters happens in silence. Waking up early, resisting temptations, staying focused on goals, building skills, these things rarely bring applause, but they are the foundation of true strength. If you can take pride in them without expecting validation, you are already far ahead of most people. The satisfaction that comes from private victories builds confidence that cannot be taken away. When you depend on outside validation, you also become vulnerable to manipulation. People can flatter you into making decisions, they can pressure you to prove yourself, and they can make you spend or act against your better judgment just to keep their approval. But when you thrive without it, you are no longer swayed by praise or criticism. You are immune to emotional control. This makes you stronger, clearer, and harder to break. There is also freedom in not needing others to validate you. When you no longer care about how your financial choices are perceived, you can live the way you truly want. You can choose simplicity without shame. You can choose ambition without arrogance. You can save quietly, invest steadily, and spend wisely without feeling pressured to show it off. That freedom allows you to design a life that is authentic instead of a performance designed to keep up appearances. Inner power grows each time you resist the urge to show off. Every time you keep your success private, you tell yourself that your work matters even without recognition. Every time you stay focused on your goals instead of applause, you strengthen your independence. Over time, this becomes your default way of living. You stop chasing validation altogether because you realize you never needed it in the first place. You also begin to notice how fragile financial validation really is. People may admire you for a season, but admiration fades. Someone richer comes along, someone louder takes the stage, and suddenly your validation disappears. If you built your identity on that admiration, you crumble. But if you built your identity on inner strength, you remain steady, no matter what happens around you. That steadiness is what makes you truly powerful. Thriving without validation also allows you to embrace failure without fear. People who live for approval are terrified of failure because they think it will make them look weak. They hide mistakes, avoid risks, and limit their growth. But when you no longer care about validation, failure loses its sting. You can take risks, learn lessons, and grow stronger without worrying about who is watching. Failure becomes fuel, not shame. That mindset unlocks levels of growth you could never reach if you were always performing for others. Another layer of inner power comes from defining success on your own terms. If you measure success by how others respond, you will always chase the next sign of approval. But if you define it by the progress you make, the skills you develop, the freedom you create, and the person you become, then you are always winning, because you are playing by your own rules. This personal definition of success shields you from the endless race of comparison. Self-respect grows when you stop needing others to validate your financial life. Every time you choose your values over their opinions, you reinforce your respect for yourself. You stop betraying yourself for applause. You stop bending your goals to fit their expectations. That kind of self-respect is priceless. It makes you walk with calm assurance, not because the world agrees with you, but because you know you are living truthfully. Building inner power is not about rejecting others. It is about shifting your center of gravity. You stop leaning on outside approval for balance, and instead anchor yourself in your own strength. When people praise you, you appreciate it but do not depend on it. When people criticize you, you listen if it helps you grow, but you do not collapse under it. You stand tall in both seasons, because you are not driven by validation, you are driven by purpose. Inner power also brings peace. People who constantly seek validation are restless. They worry about how they look, what people think, and whether they are admired enough. Their minds are full of noise, but those who no longer need validation live with calm. They focus on their work, their growth, and their relationships without the burden of performance. That peace allows them to enjoy life in a way the restless never can. The strength you build by thriving without validation becomes a shield against the pressures of the world. No matter how much society tells you to show off, you know you don't need to. No matter how much peers try to compare, you know you are not in competition. No matter how much people praise or criticize, you know your path is steady. That shield makes you resilient. It keeps you grounded when others are shaken. You must also see the legacy of inner power. When you live without chasing validation, you inspire others in ways louder than any display could. People notice your calm confidence, your steady focus, and your lack of need for approval. They respect you not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. That influence lasts longer than applause, because it is rooted in authenticity. The most powerful people are not those who need the spotlight. They are the ones who can build quietly, stay steady through storms, and remain fulfilled even without recognition. Their power comes from within, and because of that it cannot be taken away. That is the power you build when you stop seeking validation and start thriving on your own terms. In the end, financial validation is an illusion. It promises strength, but delivers dependence. It promises joy, but leaves emptiness. It promises respect, but creates pressure. True strength is the opposite. It comes from not needing validation at all. It comes from knowing that your value is not up for negotiation, that your journey is yours to define, and that your peace is too precious to hand over for applause. So build that power. Train yourself to thrive without anyone else's recognition. Learn to take pride in silent victories, to embrace growth for its own sake, and to stand strong whether anyone notices or not. This is the kind of power that lasts. This is the kind of strength that frees you from the endless chase of approval. And this is the life that allows you to grow, thrive, and succeed in a way that no outside validation could ever provide.